try and prioritize stronger laners. And I think that you can already see that Misfits has said, no more strong laners for you.
All right, so Malzahar, KaKAO were the two bans previously. It's now Zyra, Illaoi, Rengar off the table for Giants. We're expecting a Camille to pop up in the next two.
The thing that concerns me for Misfits is the fact that they're banning Zyra again. Now, that's not necessarily a bad ban because Zyra is a strong support champion, but it also brings into question how deep is IgNar's champion pool? Because he did rely quite heavily on champions like the Thresh, Braum, Alistar in Challenger Series, and in a meta where range support champions are sort of the kings and queens, the fact that he can't play them could be a bit of an issue.
Can't play them, won't play them. As a team decides not to, there's a number of reasons that could cause that decision making. We'll have to discuss with Misfits at a later date. Giants, one ban left. LeBlanc comes to mind as one of the options.
So
instead of
Katarina's open. Katarina's open, Trevor.
LeBlanc was banned by Misfits. Now, Katarina, is it first pick?
It's super
blind pick. I mean, Faker has done it in LCK.
But that was also on the second half of the draft when he actually decided to go for Katarina. And if you thought that Syndra was bad in terms of going up against double exhaust, Katarina's way worse because she goes into melee range and she gets shut down so quickly from those exhausts. So looks like the priority is actually going to shift in. There we are. We've debated whether or not IgNar's champion pool is deep. He's already mixing it up a bit.
Debated or had a one-liner's different terms and terminology there, Vedius. But interesting because Malzahar was banned by Misfits last game. They went for the Syndra first pick. Syndra is available. Giants went for the Rek'Sai Varus. It worked very well for them in game number one, specifically Memento. Man on your screen right now, had a good impact in the mid game. Right, but it was the KaKAO IgNar show for the first 20 minutes.
It was very difficult for Flaxxish to really gank into it anyway. Like, he could have looked to gank top, but what would he gain from shutting down a Maokai, especially when he knows that Flaxxish is eventually going to outscale anyway. Mid, it was a Corki, and bottom lane was his only real stepping opportunity, which was shut down very early on thanks to KaKAO. So he did make up for it later on in the game, especially with that Great Baron steal. But now for Misfits, they need to prioritize what they want to pick at. Ashe is on the board. They could look to get themselves an early jungler. I feel like you also want to pick up your AD carry here, given that Malzahar is likely to go in the support role. You could go for something like a Kennen or just stick with the Varus, which is just a little bit safe. Like, the problem is with AD carries right now is you just kind of want a lot of utility, and I feel like Varus fits the bill perfectly fine.
Yeah, great wave clear. CC and team fights later in the game, and considering we had some weird and wonderful picks already this series, Varus could also go mid lane if they wanted to. Probably didn't want to into a Ryze though, and if anybody was going to wield Ryze effectively, it would be Knight. He had some great performances last year.
PowerOfEvil actually never played Ryze last week. He was not a fan of the champion, and something that he may very well look to change coming into the new split. But for now, we are just going to be seeing the Karma come out from the side of Giants. And I think that there's been a bit of debate in the office as to how good Karma is into Malzahar. Like, it's okay. It's not necessarily one way or the other. The great thing about Karma is that she has the shield to mitigate a lot of the poke damage that Malzahar has. His trading power that he gets early from just throwing out the Voidlings and just running at your face, combined with the Malefic Vision, definitely hurts. And she can kite that out with the shield, as well as disengage. Her Q is really good at getting that early push against Malzahar, which is a part in which he is somewhat weak. So you can mitigate a lot of the strengths that Malzahar has, but his all-in potential is something that Karma cannot stop because she has no interrupts.
I'm definitely going to ask you to review how that impacts the laning phase later in the game, because it definitely was impactful during game one. We're into ban phase 2. It started with Giants removing Syndra. Once again, Jace is taken off the table from Misfits, and it will be up to Giants to remove another. They went Tahm Kench and Shen in their second rotation. Shen is already banned, with supports already locked in. A mid laner, maybe, or another top laner, tank, maybe?
This is the question, because there are so many things left open. Do you really want to prioritize taking away the Maokai? We've seen that Alphari is definitely experienced on the champion.
The answer is yes, Vedius.
Ah, well, there you go. They don't want him playing that. Definitely a comfort pick for, I say comfort. It's a champion that he can play, not one that he enjoys. But now you have to start thinking about things that Giants might want to prioritize, because with Syndra off the board, the number of counters into Ryze has now actually been significantly reduced. So Misfits could consider trying to take that one away. They could look to put more attention onto top. I believe we saw a Fiora ban in the previous game from Misfits, and right now that champion is still available for Flaxxish.
But it would feel like the Ryze would be the option here, because the first pick in the second phase will be Giants. And the fact that they've taken away that Syndra must raise its popularity. Whether they opted not to ban or missed it is up for discussion. But either way, you're 100% right. The last ban from Misfits in that second phase is blank, and that allows Giants to lock in the Ryze.
Oops. I feel is the appropriate term there. But yeah, with the Ryze, you could pick Cat into Ryze. It's not ideal, given that Ryze has so much pushing power early. He scales incredibly well. But Katarina is just such a strong champion in terms of raw numbers that it is definitely a risky pick. But it looks like they're just going to play it safe for now.
Yeah, safe pick. It's difficult to play something into Ryze or counter Ryze. And Orianna is at least going to give you some scaling and give you some options during the laning phase. What's left for Misfits now? A top laner with Maokai off the table, with Shen off the table. You could go Nautilus.
Poppy is a possibility.
Yep.
A tank line. Ooh, or forget tanks, just go damage.
I heard it was a tank meta, Vedius.
Well, when you look at actually what's banned away, now Alphari is saying your options for top lane are actually quite limited, because now we're trying to expecting you to pick a tank. And I actually think this is quite a smart adaptation from Misfits, because they realize that Flaxxish is likely to go on something more carry orientated, given that Memento has already locked in a tank. We saw it in game 1 with the Alawi, and if he had gone for something like a Poppy, that would have opened up Flaxxish to go for something aggressive. So Misfits and Alphari are basically saying, all right, we'll match your aggression with more aggression, and Misfits have been able to build themselves a fantastic teamfight composition. You have the initiation with the Varus. You also have the follow-up from the Rumble ultimate to act as an area of zone control. The Orianna ultimate, the cleanup from the Kha'Zix. So much team fight and crowd control that this mid-game is going to be monstrous for the side of Misfits.
It will be, but if you say Misfits are going to go team fight, then what does Giants have with engage from Ashe?
I mean, they basically have the same thing, except they have a tank to soak up a lot of the damage. I mean, the biggest issue for Giants is that their engage, actually I would argue their engage is a little bit better.
I think it's safer with an Ashe as well, longer range.
Karma shield onto the Kennen coming from the flank, like, could be another Smeb moment, you know?
Throw some Rek'Sai unburrows into the equation, and you've got some terrifying possibilities. Just to let you guys know, Misfits ran out of time during ban phase 2 for that final ban. So that means they did miss it. Regardless of what they may have wanted to remove from the pool, it allows Knight to get his hands on that Ryze. I did misspeak earlier. Knight was 0-2 on Ryze last year. And we'll see if he can turn that one around. Giants already 1-0 up in the series. They won against Misfits in 46 minutes, but their early game has to be better, Vedius. What do they need to fix this time with these comps?
Well, at least this time round, they have a little bit more pushing power. The ranged advantage from the Kennen up in the top lane is going to allow them to be a little bit more aggressive. And same for the mid, same for the bot. We'll expand more once we actually get into game.
And we are getting into game. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Misfits versus Giants. Group A here in the European LCS. 2 more teams after we saw G2 and Fnatic yesterday. Let's see what Giants can do. The analyst desk predicted a Misfits victory. It was a 2-1 win by Dracos, and it was a 2-0 win by Deficio. And let's see if Misfits can actually live up to some of the preseason hype.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about this mid lane very quickly, simply because we talk a lot about pushing, and I know I harp on a lot about it, but when you compare wave clear, Ryze and Orianna are actually fairly similar. But the big difference between them is actually the mana cost and the mana pools of these mid lane early, because something that a lot of people don't often respect is how much mana you burn through in trying to get these pushing waves early on. And the great thing for Ryze is his mana costs are actually fairly low, and he builds mana naturally. He's sitting on about 770 mana, or 720 mana, sorry, at level 1,
Yeah.
which means that he has so much mana to play with that just enables him to constantly push against the Ori, which means that Power is forced to constantly wave clear rather than play aggressive.
And just for reference, the Orianna by PowerOfEvil has 330 now.
Exactly. So that just allows Knight to have more of a push in the early game. So that's why Giants will have a bit of an edge in the mid. They'll have a bit of a pushing lane up in the top because of the range differential. And you would expect bottom lane to largely have an advantage early push, not only because they have a Karma combined with the volley from the Ashe, but also because they've gotten to lane first as they both decided to give KaKAO the pull.
All right, let's see how this impacts the early game then for Knight and where Memento and KaKAO decide to combo. IgNar's early game making play potential is lower on a Malzahar. You know, he really wants to get to level 6, get some of that CC up and into a Karma Ashe. I think it's going to be difficult early on, and that's why. Mantra Q from Hustlin, and Hansama takes a burst of damage from the volley. Down to 50% already.
But you can also see the impact that these Voidlings have. Hustlin actually already having to burn a cookie to just deal with the pressure that these Voidlings can put out. The big thing about the Voidlings you have to bear in mind is that they actually have a very large cooldown window that you can actually take advantage of, which is why Giants now are being much more aggressive. They're looking to get the push. They've gotten themselves the early level 2. And this is that early window which you can take advantage of against Malzahar. Now that he's picked up the Malefic Vision, Giants' bottom lane have to be a little bit more careful. But still, this is a big window that you can bully him and push him underneath and start to starve a bit of farm away from Hansama.
Stop farm from Hansama, that's going to be useful. I think his AD carry selection this time around going to be a little more versatile than that Jhin in game 1, and I think that was a big reason their mid to late game was impacted. But up in the top lane, Flaxxish and Alphari, they fought a whole hell of a lot in game 1. As Knight continues to trade with those overloads. What are you expecting from this Rumble Kennen matchup? Obviously, Alphari's going to be able to shove all day with that Flame Spitter. But Kennen is going to have the ability to teleport and impact team fights with his Maelstrom, the same way the Equalizer will in many ways.
So, people keep complaining that tanks are the problem in the top lane. Now, if you thought a Poppy was obnoxious, imagine having a giant thunderstorm on your face. Personally, I would prefer the Poppy, but hey, that's just me. I mean, honestly, this Kennen is going to be absolutely horrendous for both PowerOfEvil and Hans to deal with, because again, they're playing these low mobility carries, which makes it so easy for something like a Karma Kennen to just dive onto your face. And it's very much down to positioning. And when we think back to Hansama's positioning in game 1, he actually got caught out fairly often in these big team fights. He was being the target focus, and he was just taking a lot of damage when he really shouldn't have been.
That meant he gave up many more deaths than he needed to. Hansama again eats a Soul Flare, at least the first half of it. Already down 8 or so CS, may get 6 after the wave. So that's the pressure from that Karma Ashe. Flaxxish under pressure. KaKAO changing his early game pathing. In game 1, it was about Hans and IgNar. Now in game 2, it's with Alphari. Lightning Rush backwards, massive damage onto Flaxxish. The stun comes out, and Alphari starts overheating with that Flame Spitter. Memento nearby for a counter gank, but Vedius, it doesn't look like KaKAO's going to be in big threats.
I think that Misfits just have to disengage largely due to the size of this minion wave. And you can see Alphari struggling in terms of the farm because, yes, he does have the very early push, but things will start to swing in the favor of the Kennen. Now that he's got all of his abilities skilled, and he can actually start to trade back with the range advantage, with the poke that he has from the Q, combined with the W.
Yeah, of course, those numbers on your screen, slightly misleading. It was a Maokai versus Illaoi, so remember the context of why the damage per minute is so high. Knight with Ghost and Flash coming in behind Hansama and IgNar. Overload into Room Prison. IgNar's going to get slowed by the volley. Hansama's putting a lot of damage down. IgNar's able to just flash away. There wasn't quick enough response from Giants.
Voidlings, man. That's how much damage those little terrors can do. It helps that Ryze was exhausted, but when you have the Malefic Vision, the additional damage that you get from the Voidlings, and now look at the dive coming out from KaKAO.
All right, Flash and heals available for HeaQ. This could be a 3-on-1 dive. No exhaust available. KaKAO's coming forward. Challenging Smite is out. Piercing Arrow into the Thunderlords. Command Protect. HeaQ's holding on to the Summoners until the last second. Gets away with his life. Memento burrows onto Alphari, and first blood picked up by Flaxxish.
So while there was all this action happening down in the bottom lane, Giants respond with a gank in the top. No first blood for Misfits. First blood goes over to Flaxxish, and this is a great way to start for the Swedish top lane.
Oh, good start to Giants. They've already got 1,000 gold. PowerOfEvil, no shockwave available, running low on mana. Knight's trying to run him down, connecting every single skill shot. PowerOfEvil sidesteps the overload. Not going to be over here. Here comes KaKAO.
KaKAO!
Knight! He does it! They trade 1 for 1.
That was so cool. Really like that 1 versus 1. PowerOfEvil was just doing his best to buy as much time as he could, but he had no mana. So he just needed KaKAO to come in and save him. Giants go, Knight goes for the flash, gets the 1 for 1. Really cool trade. That's the mid lane sort of fight I love to see.
We love seeing Ryze in the mid lane. 2 days in a row now, we've got some exciting plays. Memento looking for the unburrow, flash into slicing Maelstrom. Alphari cannot flash to safety. Equalizer will buy some time. Memento and Flaxxish decide not to dive. Not going to run the risk this time round, and Alphari survives.
Very good for Alphari, actually, because now a lot of the kill threat, a lot of the dive potential from that Kennen has been removed, which means that he should be a little bit safer, but he's now going to be forced back. He doesn't have his teleport available, but let's backtrack to this mid lane trade, because you'll see that PowerOfEvil starts off using his QW combo, which burns through all of his mana. Whereas Knight, he's just continuously trading because his mana pool is so vast. He does end up missing that Q, so good sidestep from PowerOfEvil. KaKAO comes in, but then just such a quick flash from Knight. He flashes just before the auto attack animation comes out from KaKAO to allow him to get that final W2 combo to get the kill.
So Knight ends up getting a kill. It's KaKAO that secures it for Misfits. Knight on this Ryze, already pulling ahead in CS. It's a good start, but again, somewhat expected now that PowerOfEvil has access to level 6 and refillable potion and the Doran's wave clear and the regen going to be in his favor. But Vedius, look at that mini-map. Deep vision from Misfits that makes this dragon significantly safer.
A lot of this is thanks to the fact that Knight did end up just dying, so with mid lane pressure gone and the bottom lane pushing in the favor of Misfits, this has allowed KaKAO to move in, get some deep vision in, and with control over the bottom half of the map, they can go for that first trade. So we're already seeing a bit of a shift from priority for Misfits in this early game.
Yeah, definitely helping out. 8-minute dragon. KaKAO, also slightly different build. He helped pick up that early kill in the previous game, went for the Tiamat. PowerOfEvil able to just sidestep. Good shockwave onto Memento, but Knight throws down the Ghost. They've traded back and forth, just chunking over and over. A machine gun mid laner, but no further kills.
Both mid laners ended up using Ghost in that exchange. I think that Knight thought that they could go for the aggressive play, but with the presence of KaKAO, he's forced away. Now Memento, no
Look
flash.
at that from the Void Spike. Flash forward, Taste of Fear is not enough. Ooh. Red buff slows down Memento. KaKAO needs to get in range. The cooldown's not going to connect. The overload is locked down. KaKAO turns around to Knight. Knight's running a little low on mana. Ooh. 200 HP. KaKAO sidesteps, gets the kill.
Really good outplay from KaKAO. I didn't think he was going to get away from that. Oh!
Is that double digit? Hustlin gets it back!
Nice snipe coming out from HeaQ and Hustlin. They get the return kill, 1 for 1, but it's not over yet.
No, it's not. Chain of Corruption into the Nethergrass. HeaQ is killed as a reply. It's PowerOfEvil that secures that one, setting up for a potential dive. Hustlin's got exhaust. The farm alarm brings Memento back to the fight, but not close enough. At the end of the day, is that a 2 for 1 to close it out?
So that is a skirmish. That is the prime definition of a skirmish. The initial target was Memento. I mean, it's going to be a pretty long replay, but just have a look at this. You can see KaKAO, he's contesting over the vision. He knows Memento doesn't have flash from the gank that happened top lane, so he commits. The regeneration from the passive Memento keeps him alive from the red buff. KaKAO is waiting for his W to come back up. Knight body blocks. KaKAO has the balls to say, I can win this 1v1. Sidesteps the Q.
That was the game changer.
And then the red buff is enough to finish him off. Now he's able to walk away, but HeaQ's like, nah, mate. I can use the arrow to get the kill, and then Hustlin comes in to clean up.
Yeah, but I think it's important to note the buff transfer as well. It's not only does Hustlin get away with that one, big smiles.
Oh, man.
HeaQ gets shut down. Gonna take a quick look at Hustlin. He could stop bullying that lane in a few minutes. Before we get there, though, Knight gets jumped on. Memento and Hustlin coming for some support. There's no Nethergrass, but it may not be needed. The damage from those Voidlings. IgNar's little army.
The animals came in 2 by 2 by 2 by 2, and Knight, he just couldn't manage with all of that additional damage. But now Hansam was the focus.
Ashe arrow, very good flash. Near point blank, but Hansam must have predicted that one or anticipated it to a certain degree.
I'm really enjoying this early game.
We're off to a good start, and crucially, neither team has a significant advantage. They've traded blow for blow. They've kept the game very even. We're 12 minutes in, Vedius. It's nearly even on kills. But that might change because Misfit and PowerOfEvil, they've enlisted the help of a blast cone.
So there's a lot of pings coming down. Flaxxish knows that something is up.
Oh, he does. But I think Flaxxish is about to get deaded.
And the dirt is gone. Unfortunately for Flaxxish, there's nothing that he can do against that 3-man dive. I felt like he should have read it a little bit sooner, but couldn't react. But now look at the collapse.
Okay, let's see where the target is. Nethergrass has been used on Memento. He's being tagged out. Here comes HeaQ. Volley goes out. Exhaust onto IgNar just to try and reduce that Mal's effectiveness. Summon a heal, buy some additional time. And first tower, and the bonus gold goes to Misfits. It's Alphari that gets the kill. Overload onto IgNar. Still has his flash available. But Vedius, it's a wit's end picked up by Flaxxish. Are we expecting the AD build that we saw out of LCK, I think it was?
It certainly looks like that we're heading towards that route. I'm surprised that he has actually decided to go that. They wouldn't have too much magic damage, and my biggest issue with the AD build is it actually removes a lot of your team fight power, because while you do bring a lot of utility, you're sort of building for being a split pusher. And this is very much what we saw in Game 1, but perhaps he is shifting towards getting that again in Game 2.
I think it's fair to talk about that, though, because Flaxxish's side lane play is arguably what stalled the game for Giants. You know, his Illaoi struggled a little bit early after repeated ganks, but he kept farming, stayed relevant, ended up dealing a metric boatload of damage by the end of the game, and he took multiple towers by himself.
He certainly did. And come the later stages, it's going to be very difficult for someone like a Rumble to be able to trade with an incredibly high attack speed Kennen, because the great thing about it is how often you can proc that passive on the W. So every fifth auto attack, you get the charge, which applies the Mark of the Storm, and you can just keep doing that over and over and over again, which enables your ability to trade very effectively. So I expect on the later stages, things will become very difficult for Alphari, and I think it's quite a nice adaptation, but again, it does reduce your ability to team fight.
Yeah, it absolutely does. But if it opens up another avenue to victory, you know, you've got to weigh up the pros and cons, and then we'll reevaluate. Was it the right choice? The benefit of hindsight. Now, Vedius, the next dragon is spawning in 30 seconds. It's another Cloud Drake. Really been loving our Cloud Drakes in the first 2 days.
It's been really windy this weekend, I've got to be honest.
The Windy City, and before that comes up, KaKAO going to set his sights with the help of PowerOfEvil on his bottom lane. Maybe set up a dive, but there's support coming actually from the whole team. 4v4s available, and there are teleports.
It looks like right now the priority is just to get the tower. They have a minion wave, and they have all 4 members, but they realize that the collapse from Ryze is also coming down.
Do Giants want to contest the dragon? Is it worth fighting over?
I think at this point in the game, with some of the items that have been picked up, it definitely could go in the favor of Misfits, especially when you factor in the strength of a Rumble once he's completed his Haunting Guise. So I think that it could be a good objective, but given that it's a Cloud, do you take the risk?
Oh, Flaxxish uses that Slicing Maelstrom, but ate so many of those Electro Harpoons. Alphari's got time to laugh in his face.
And this is the thing about Alphari, right? He is a very talented player, but he knows it. He knows that he's good, and he knows that people love to gank him, and he's very confident, and I wonder if that comes to bite him in the butt later.
We'll find out later. Right now, it has not. Giants did concede the dragon. Look at the minimap. No pressure, no threat. We've just ticked over 15 minutes, and Misfits will get their second dragon of the game. I want to bring our attention a little bit to Knight, because he's just picked up that Rod of Ages. Got himself that tier that's continuing to stack as a very, very minor CS difference. And he's going to be the recipient of some support here from Memento. Flash into Overload, as well as the Rune Prison. Shockwave catches Knight. Here comes KaKAO. End up trading 1-for-1. Memento unburrows once more. Alphari's got an equalizer if he wants to use it. There's no flash for Memento. We'll regen a little. Flash forward from Alphari. Burns down Memento. And Alphari gets out. It's a 1-for-2.
Nice collapse coming out from Alphari. Remember that he had already forced Flaxxish back earlier on. thanks to the ultimate that Flaxxish tried to use up in the top lane. So really good collapse coming out, and honestly a really good response coming out from PowerOfEvil, because note that this was a two-man gang. He doesn't panic flash, he flashes towards KaKAO, uses his ultimate to draw him in, get the damage down, and then Misfits feel confident enough to go for the chase onto Memento.
Very clear that Giants have fixed their early game problems from game number 1.
Look at the enthusiasm on that face.
So much passion. So much passion picking up that kill. But Vedius, I want to go back to just review Knight in this Ryze. Game 1, he had a 9 CSD. If we looked at Summer Split last year, Knight was the outstanding player on the Giants squad. He was the rookie of the split. He was actually the 3rd highest when it came to CSD. Out of all players in the mid lane, it is close to even. But this is a guy that there's expectation. He's meant to be one of the primary carries, and he's setting himself up to be one this game on the Ryze.
But a lot of that was due to the champion that he was playing. He was a big fan of things like the Zillion and like the Vladimir. And we also have to question the quality bar of the European mid laners last split. Like, he was... When you compare him to a lot of the standards of Ye Old, he was like fairly average. He didn't necessarily, like, he was a big carry, he was a big part of a lot of these team fights, but his laning phase wasn't really the part where he shone. And I feel like we saw very much of that in the earlier game, where he went for that dive onto Han Summer, where he was getting those little outplays and where he was getting caught off in a side lane. So while he definitely was a strong component of that team, I feel like that a lot of the strengths from Giants before was the synergy between between MaxLaw
and Knights. And I don't think we've seen that synergy just yet, definitely not in the early stages of the game. As we roll around to mid-game and some more team fights, we can review that. But, you know, because of the 2 towers falling, because of the additional kills, Misfits once again have a sizable lead. But they had a sizable lead in game 1. This time around, they're pushing more proactively.
Look at the vision. They've already covered their flanks. They want to make sure that they can get this tier 1 in the mid. They have the teleport from Alphari, who now has his ultimate available, and this is a very clean take from Misfits. Now, this is what we saw in game 1. This is the sort of stage that they were at come this point in the game, and they struggled to try and make plays. They didn't know how to force any fights, and they often went around towards that Baron area, which they very quickly lost control of. By taking that early mid lane turret, this opens up the map a lot more. It enables them to steal away these neutral objectives, should allow them to move towards that Baron area and gain more control, and maybe even put some more priority on that Infernal Drift.
Now, you and I had a discussion around those Baron plays, and, you know, Misfits team composition versus Giants team composition. Do Misfits have more options here? Are they forced to play around Baron, or, you know, can they look for a pick with the Chain of Corruption or Malzahar or something maybe a little different to... I feel they could have done more picks with the Jhin in game 1, for example.
I feel like the difference between game 1 and game 2 is that in game 1, they were forcing fights around the Baron and relying on Maokai to be the initiator, with Syndra getting that pick off on the side with the Jhin follower, but the exhausts were mitigating a lot of that threat. Now in game 2, if they go for that Baron, think of how many other tools they have. If you have Giants trying to move up this river towards the Baron, you have the Equalizer, there's the Ori Ball you have to always play around, the Chain of Corruption, the Malzahar silence. There are just so many more tools in Misfits kit that they can use to punish Giants trying to collapse as they start an objective.
And try to build that gold graph even further ahead. Giants were sat right on top of a ward that Misfits had placed in that river bush. And now IgNar and KaKAO holding hands once again, as we've seen from game 1. Grouping have to try and clear out as much vision as possible. A Soul Flare gets a little bit of damage onto KaKAO. He's gone for, again, a high damage build. It's very clear where the objective is here. 20 minutes setting up some Baron vision.
Speaking of builds, we also need to track IgNar's build, because you see 2 variations. Oh, I feel bad for Hans there. That actually could have been very bad. He actually pinged him out, they did spot him. But nevertheless, we have to keep track of the Malzahar build, because you actually see 2 variations between the very early Leandries as well as a very early Ryze, and that depends on whether or not you want more damage or more utility. And in solo queue and in my experiences, a lot of people like to rush the early damage because you're Malzahar and you can nuke people, but in competitive play, I'm expecting them to go more towards the utility, more towards being that supportive player, especially when you consider you already have 4 damage threats on the side of Misfits.
That's the biggest thing for me, is there's so much to work with. Flaxxish is going to look for Alphari. Blade of the Ruin King's already been used. Slicing Maelstrom comes out. Flaxxish sidesteps the Equalizer. They've ended up trading ultimates, but it's Flaxxish with a little bit of sustain on that Blade of the Ruin King. Here comes KaKAO from the side. Throws down the Void Rush. No, not the Void Rush, right? Void Assault, and Flaxxish is killed. Just too easy. One charge of the ultimate from that assault and just easily picked up by KaKAO.
I mean, honestly, that was just so smart from KaKAO because he used his ultimate before he came out of the brush. So he actually jumped into the brush, instantly used his invisibility.
And that means
was able to
Dragon.
get the collapse. Exactly that. Like, this is Infernal Drake that's going over to the side of Misfits. They've already maintained control over the first two. They're going to get the third one. And I feel like this is a big change up from what we saw in game.
There is, and it's another sort of macro positional mistake on the side of Giants. Maybe that's the misuse of the word. A map positional mistake would be more accurate. Game one, we saw Knight overextending, over-pushing, and got punished for it. This time round, look, Knight is in the top lane. He's got no teleport. And Misfits just easily put pressure. Flash over the wall from IgNar. Hustlin's down. This should secure the tower as well. Memento's coming from behind. He's going to get burned down as well. Giants are like lambs to the slaughter. Flaxxish is caught out. Here comes Knight, but it's 1-on-5. He really has to go superhuman to make this fight work. Knight is just going to spread that spell flux. The tower dropped, Hustlin and Memento dropped, and Giants scrambling for defense.
That is one of the greatest strengths that you have as a Malzahar. Being able to do the surprise staring contest is something that honestly Hustlin wasn't prepared for. It was really nice setup coming out from IgNar. Able to get himself the blue buff. Good job there, PowerOfEvil. Although you might lose that one. But they also get themselves a Terran. It comes back to exactly what you were saying. Look at the positioning of Knight. He's moving down the river. And it's just too late because the collapse coming out from the rest of Misfits is just so strong. Flaxxish doesn't have his ultimate. He's AD Kennen. He holds no teamfight power in this situation, and Knight just can't do anything.
And it all stems from the attempted 1-3-1. Knight was in the top lane, Flaxxish was in the bottom lane. Flaxxish got ganked, Knight was too slow to react, and Misfits just barreled down the mid lane.
And I really want to echo that point too, because what Misfits have done this game, which is different to what they did in game one, is they're actually punishing the setup for the 1-3-1. Not only did they play the early game just like they did in game one, slowly working their way through all of the turrets, they realized the Giants started to set up the split push, and they started to punish it.
Yeah, that means Misfits have extended that gold lead. It's 6,000 now. What Misfits were unable to do in game one was extend that gold lead, was to push it further, push it harder, and get a bigger advantage. This time they have. I'm going to answer one of the questions you asked around the Malzahar build. So Haunting Guys picked up.
Looks like he's going more damage.
More damage. Screw it. 5 damage sources. Why not? I saw a request to add the support damage in team fights to the damage graph.
The reason why we
definitely
don't,
something we have to talk about.
No, the reason why we don't is because it would be so big that you wouldn't be able to see the other players' damage graphs.
I mean, that's the truth. Absolutely the truth. And of course, big changes in support damage and support meta as we come into the 2017 season. All right, KaKAO's setting up a potential flank from behind. Teleport's available for Alphari. But instead, Giants play this one safe and back away. Vedius, they've only got one tower in 24 minutes. Flaxxish is doing the best he can to keep pressure. And this little electro hamster is flinging those shurikens at a mile a minute.
And, oh, okay, so Baron has been started. There's actually 0 vision, 0 teleport coming out from Flax. And look at how quick this is going down.
Oh, the Voidlings are helping to tank. There's just so much damage to speak of. Memento's locked down. He can't get into the pit. The arrow doesn't even find a target. Misfits sneak the Baron. KaKAO's looking for Knight. The equalizer slows down the retreat. KaKAO plays it safe this time round, and all Giants can do is stand by as Baron is secured.
That was so good from IgNar, realizing the Memento had spotted out the Baron. A little bit too late because 50% of its HP had already gone. He saved his ultimate for just the right moment, and they're able to secure it. Really well played. And the thing is, because Flaxxish had no teleport, there was no way for him to join that fight. It was just such a smart play from Misfits. And this is the thing that we were talking about back in game one. The combined power of KaKAO's experience, PowerOfEvil's experience, and the synergy that KaKAO and IgNar have slowly started to accrue with each other is just really beautiful to see.
And we're just seeing a little bit of mistakes, you know, from the Giant side, from positional positions on the map and from decision making, some of the vision calls, and they've now got to dig themselves out of a hole. Coming back from a 3,000 goal deficit of 25 minutes is one thing. Coming back from 6,500 and Baron is a whole other beast, especially when they're wombo combo. You know, team fight is slightly weakened because Kennen's gone for an AD build.
Yep.
He's not really structured to look for a big 5v5.
Nope, he is not, but what they could do is look for a 1 versus 1 as Knight is coming for the collapse onto Alphari.
It's going to be 2v1 as Memento's here as well, but Knight and Memento, they're about to be surrounded Misfits.
Like, bad idea.
Oh, this is going to be scary. 5 members of Giants have theoretically got the ability to collapse. The Ashe arrow catches Hunsummer. Unburrow as well. Slicing Maelstrom's buying some time, but Hunsummer stays alive. Alphari goes golden with an hourglass. Memento unburies to buy some more time. Shockwave sends Flaxxish backwards. Giants have been destroyed where they stand. 4 for nothing.
And that could very well be the game. 4 members are dead for Giants, 30-second death timers. They have a Baron-empowered minion wave, and Misfits bite back.
26 minutes, and Misfits are setting onto the Nexus turrets. This could be the decider game. Screw that. This is going to a decider game. KaKAO, Alphari leading the charge. The Nexus is destroyed, and Misfits dominate game 2.
Misfits with a very clean game 2. We praised them for their early game 1, and they continue that, fix a lot of their issues, and they just played the map beautifully coming into this second game. Very impressive.
I think that was the performance a lot of people were expecting.
Yes.
You know, Giants had some great individual plays early game. They picked up some kills. They were scrappy in those skirmishes, but it was Misfits that clearly had just a high headroom, higher ability to snowball ahead.
They certainly did, and I mean, we have to criticize. Oh, personally, I criticized a little bit the Kennen build.
Yeah.
Personally, I think, yes, it's definitely better built for split pushing, but I felt that when you compared the two team fighting, you outlined it perfectly. You know, you have the Ashe arrow initiate. We never once saw the Kennen Karma duo. We never once saw the Ryze coming in and just cleaning up an entire team fight. Like, we never saw that because there was never an opportunity to do that. And it was always like, let's set up a 1-3-1, let's try and play the split push game. And this time, Misfits just did not allow it.
No, they really did not. And Vedius, we have a 2017 record here in the European LCS.
Do it.
That was the shortest game time win by 9 minutes.
Wow. We've had some
Game
long
7.
games in EU.
Still counts. It still counts. But it is something you expect, right? It is something that it's week 1. Teams are still ironing out all of the kinks, right? And making it work.
The thing about this is this just reminded me of like Challenger Series Misfits. That's who I was looking back to just because of how clean and dominant they were. And they weren't dominant in the sense that they were getting tons of kills. They were just sweeping over the map. It was just the fact that it was a clean game. And that's what I'm used to seeing from the Challenger Misfits.
What I liked so much about this game and how Misfits won is just how they evolved that Baron play. Really clean, really safe, and it worked out. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have another tie here in Europe, but this time around, we'll see if Giants or Misfits will come out on top in game 3.
That was so lame by Vedius.
What did he do?
When he said tie, he pointed to his tie.
It's because someone yesterday on Twitter pointed it out to him as well. I was like, oh, there's no ties, but he has a tie and stuff like that. Yeah. But we have another tie, and it happened really fast as well. And I'd love to jump on what Trevor said there, the fact that Misfits had a very rough start in that game 1. They gave away the advantage, and now they tweaked their performance, even though they had kind of the same starting position.
Yeah, I feel like what happened in this game was exactly what was supposed to happen in the last game. And they were actually setting up, you know, for the same thing. They had the 2 to 3K goal lead. They were taking down towers. The big difference is just how easy it is with Malzahar to start these picks here. Because before it was like, Jhin had to land some long-range stuns. Same thing for Syndra. A little bit difficult. Malzahar, you know, in this pick and ban phase, first picked as well. Flashes in, clicks R. That's it.
Well, additionally, it sets up the Kha'Zix so well, right? Because you have both the Varus and the Malzahar now. You have multiple tools to make sure the Kha'Zix can get in, kill someone, and get out. And once the Kha'Zix starts to snowball, it's such a powerful pick. It ensures that every dive after that in the game is going to make it so easy.
And the pick and ban phase here, I think there were some big questions for Giants. Always easy to target the team who lost, but Karma coming in as a response to Malzahar, I heavily disagree with. I actually think Malzahar is good against Karma. I think MF is one of the answers you're looking for here. Tom Kench was available if you want to at least deny the pick potential. None of those were taken. Kennen last rotation. We see Misfits ban some of these split pushers, and Kennen was one we have seen now in LCK from Marin, with the same build with the Wit sent first. It's just a pure split pusher. Not as effective against things that can engage like we saw here from Misfits.
You guys still said, though, with the Kennen, hey, he could put some pressure on the map again and push those towers down. But Misfits, they just pulled the trigger better, and a lot of that has to do with that Malzahar. And we're going to look at one of the examples. Instead of not really knowing what to do, they went down mid, and they flashed in, and they went for it.
And this is the thing. It's just so simple to execute on so many of these different plays that Misfits make. And once you're able to confidently dive towers like this, it's so much easier to snowball your lead, and it makes it just easy to set up any and every objective.
And that's the thing. Both teams came in with the exact same game plan as game 1. Giants wanted to split push. That's why Flaxxish goes for Kennen and builds no AP or anything. He just wants pure split push. He can't team fight at all. And then we have Misfits saying, we want to play this like 1-4 composition and then we want a team fight later. They couldn't start fights last time. We had the exact same setup, but they just didn't manage to hit anything. This time they did. And also Baron later, much cleaner because it's much easier for them to set it up.
Cleaner, I think cleaner is arguable. I think it still feels like a little bit soppy.
Let's look at it.
Let's take a look at it.
As clean as your beard.
Thank you. Which is a little sloppy right now, so I feel like it proves my point quite nicely. But the big thing here is not...
Clean!
My God. Martin, can I talk for...
Okay, so
can you back up? Can you back up for a second?
This is a discussion. Why was it not clean?
Malzahar gives them the safety to set that up, but I still don't feel like they were proactive enough in setting up the vision. I feel like if they had any other champion, we would not call that a clean Baron. So if they're aware of that, that's fine. It is clean under the circumstances, but without Malzahar, that would have been a little sloppy.
But that's the point. Like, they had Malzahar, so they went for the play. And therefore it was clean, because if they didn't have Malzahar, they would obviously have set it up differently. So I think actually now...
I don't think it's obvious that they would have set it up differently. I mean, that's my point.
That's what we should assume. We should believe they could, even after game 1 where they couldn't do it. But we should believe for this one because they had Malzahar. They knew they could just ulti the guy over the wall and actually finish Baron. Much better game, much easier comp to play with the style Misfits wanted to play as well.
And you said during the game, now this is the Misfits I thought would show up. They are 2 times better than Giants. That's what you said.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at the first 30 minutes of game 1 and now 26 minutes into this one, Misfits have been a better team, yes.
Yeah. So what are we thinking here? Game 3, if that Malzahar is taken off the table, theoretically, Misfits will be back on blue side, so that's 3 games in a row now. What do we see happening?
I mean, realistically, I see very similar compositions coming out, but I'd like to see something different from both sides. I'd like to see Giants take something in the top lane that is not a split pusher, to see more from Flaxxish, to see what he can do, and additionally, I'd like to see Misfits play something that isn't all about picks.
I actually feel like if Giants continues to do what they're doing now, but remove something like Malzahar, so it's not as easy to create picks for Misfits, I actually think Giants can win the last game as well. I think it might be a very even one because we saw Misfits struggle to close out the game when they had to rely more on the strategy and less on just a flash in, point and click.
So it's all out in the open for the next game?
I think it'd be very even though I think Misfits is a better team.
All right, we will see what happens. Well, we are going to take a quick break, but we will be right back with Game 3, the decider between Giants and Misfits. Don't go anywhere.
Gets away with his life. Memento and Varus onto Alphari, and first blood picked up by Flaxxish. 200 HP. KaKAO side gets the kill.
I didn't think he was going to get away from that. Oh!
Is that double digits? Hustlin gets it back. This could be the decided game. Screw that. This is going to a decided game. KaKAO, Alphari leading the charge. The Nexus is destroyed, and Misfits dominate game 2.